Want some candy?
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Well, hello, Mr. Fancy Pants.
I hear you looking for candy, man, bitch.
Give me some sugar, baby. Like scary movies.
Uh-huh. Want some candy?
Oh, jeez. All right, you ready? You got your horror news? We're about to find out what it is, Candy Killers. Welcome back to another episode of Monster Candy Podcast with Oubliette Sparks from Tsunami Bomb and myself, Screaming E from the Memphis Murder Men. And we're going to toss it way back with I Walked
way back in the day
with the Zombie. And I don't know, before we get into that, we should probably talk about some
horror
news. Some horror news, little bitches.
Yeah, horror news.
Horrors news. So, you want me to go first?
Sure.
Okay. So the one I got is The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs has got the green light for season 6. And they're saying it's supersized. And they're switching up the format a little bit. But it's funny because technically the new season has already started. It started in September. And for the rest of this year, they're going to do some little marathons or some specials, a Halloween special, a couple of them, and probably a Thanksgiving, Christmas. And then in March, the new format is going to start. And they always do a Valentine's Day special. So up until March, it'll be a bunch of specials. And then what they're going to do is they're going to switch it over to, I think, every other Friday from what I'm reading, instead of doing like 5 or 6 episodes of 2 movies each of like double features. They're going to switch it to a single movie every other Friday. And they're saying it's going to be about 30 movies. So it's basically going to be like all year round, which is cool. I do also kind of like the anticipation of a new season. So I don't mind if it's just, 5 or 6 weeks or however long, couple specials in between that and the new season, and then have another whole season. I'm okay with that type of stuff. I personally kind of prefer it because, like I said, it gives me something to look forward to as opposed to it just being all year. I don't know. But either way, it's cool. Good for him.
Oh, I agree with that.
Yeah. So that'll be fun. I'm sure he could probably keep going for as long as he can, but I mean, he puts a lot of miles. He's put a lot of miles on in these last 6 seasons or 6 years or however long it's been.
Yes, I would agree with you there.
I'm like, Jesus Christ, how much longer? I mean, and he's like a big Great Dane too. So we all know with big dogs, it's like, Jesus Christ, they can't go that much. They can't run forever.
No, it was funny. Yeah, I didn't realize it because he's pretty well like made up in the show until I saw him in person, and I was like, oh, he's older than I thought he was.
Oh yeah,
and not like crazy old, but it's old.
Right. I mean, for people our age, we remember Joe Bob as Monster Vision or some guy in a movie, some random guy in a movie or something, and you always have that picture of them in their prime.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
But
yeah, I mean, he looked good when I saw him.
Yeah, I mean, he's still spry as fuck. In fact,
yeah, I forget how old I am all the time. So
right, you got to keep moving. As long as you keep moving, you'll be good. And he's moving and moving and moving. So good for him. And that's all I got.
Moving and moving. So the couple I have, I sent them to you, or we talked about them. One is that like Evil did not die tonight.
No, yeah.
No matter how many times they said it, which was like, I don't know, so many times. I still haven't seen the one that was supposed to be the last, which is fine now, because apparently it's not the last. Because we're not ever going to have a last Halloween movie.
And it kind of sucks because the 2018 one was great. I liked it. But if that was the catalyst that spawned this never ending Halloween trail of just shitty movies and sequels and TV shows or whatever they're trying to do with it, I don't know if it was worth it in the end. I don't know if that juice was worth the squeeze at this point anyway, because just everything since that's been either super mediocre or extremely shitty. But
Yeah. I'm torn because it's like, well, I guess it's A24 that's doing it. And like, it's just hard because I think some things they do are great. And I think other things they do are just like real steaming piles of shit.
agreed.
So,
Well, there's also a thing.
it just doesn't make me excited yet.
Yeah. There's also a thing is oversaturation. And when you just won't let something go, it'd be one thing if everything that has come out since the reboot has been a complete fucking just juggernaut. Like everything was great. And as some people, I guess, think it's great, but the majority, or at least the popular consensus is like, ugh, these aren't good. But, everyone thinks they could always do better. Sometimes they can, but most of the time it's just rehashing this shitty franchise that you've turned into complete crap. But I guess nothing different than since Halloween 3. How many of them were there after that? 2, 3, 7 more or some bullshit like that?
I think around 7.
So
I wish they would just call it something else.
Well, I heard there was talks about them, or maybe not them, but some milling around and some rumors about trying to do another one like Halloween 3 without Michael Myers in it, which I guess would be cool. But I mean, we've kind of already seen that trick. So I don't know. Just make it good. Just do something good with it.
Yeah.
What else?
I'd say they could Rob Zombie it, but yeah.
Yeah, let's not.
I'm gonna try to not be sad about it and think it's a waste of time because maybe it will be a different storyline or different, I don't know.
You have to see Halloween Ends and then you might have a different outlook on that. You're like, just let it die.
I don't ever want to see that. That's the thing. Is like I don't want to. And I'm not gonna. And that's all I have to say about that.
I don't blame you.
Stubborn about this. I wouldn't have even seen the other one. I mean, truth be known, I didn't watch anything past the 3rd. Then I saw H2O in the theater.
Right.
And then I saw this fucking bullshit.
Yeah, I think I for sure watched 4 and 5. And then after that, I was already like, what the fuck is going on now? Why are we doing this? And then I've seen bits and pieces of H2O and all the other ones, but I've never actually sat down and watched them because the little bit I have seen, I thought was fucking horrible.
You probably didn't like. Yeah.
Yeah. It was just already like just a completely strained concept. So I just couldn't get past that. And then 2018 came up and they were making it a direct sequel from the first one, which I thought, okay, that's kind of a fresh idea. Let's see what happens. And I thought I didn't think it was super great, but it was adequate. It was entertaining. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was a good end to the franchise, but then it wasn't. And now it's just going. So
it's going to keep going.
I mean, as long as people,
yeah,
as long as people keep buying it, I mean, why not, I guess. But that's what I think.
I mean, yeah, if people keep buying it, then they will. But this one's just so new. That's my thing. It's like, there's so many reboots, sequels, prequels, continuate, like everything. But usually they give it a little bit more time. I feel like the last few years, they're not giving anything any time. It's like they're just rebooting stuff.
Constantly.
Like, quick as fuck.
Mm-hmm.
Like stuff that's just been done.
Oh, yeah. Well, what was...
Like, give it some time.
We were talking about that a while ago of a movie that like came out 10 years ago and they've already rebooted it. I can't remember what it was. I'm sure there's more than one, but There was one specific one we were like, what? Didn't that movie just come out?
I mean, the big one, the first big one I remember was like the X-Men thing. Like we had all these X-Men movies, and all of a sudden we had more, but it was a completely different set of movies with different actors other than Wolverine. They decided
Yeah, it's funny.
They decided to hire him again. And I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Like, what? I mean, yeah, he's a great Wolverine, but like, why does he get to stay? So yeah.
Because the new movies were thinking, okay, if we get Hugh Jackman, since he was the biggest name in any of them, they probably figured people will definitely see this no matter what. Smart, but
yeah, but stupid too.
Yeah.
I don't know. But it's shit like that. But there was another one that was Halloween.
But there was another one. There was something else that came out. I mean, it might have even been a little bit longer than 10 years ago, but it was not long enough for there to be a reboot. But whatever. Reboot my dick.
Is that what you have to say about that?
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on. And then the only other one I had, I mean, honestly, there's so much horror news going on because of Fantastic Fest right now. And just before that, there was like the horror one in Montreal. And then I think there was one in Brooklyn. It's like you're hearing about horror movies nonstop. Like everybody's been watching the new Dinklage.
The Dink.
Oh, yeah, watching the new Dink Toxic Avenger, which is funny because I've seen some like write-ups on it talking about how gory it is and how it's like a fun new version. So I've seen 3 different friends write about it who are all pretty different with their movie reviews generally. But they've all been at festivals, and all 3 of them didn't like the new backstory they gave him and felt like it was the whole movie they just kind of coast through, and that it doesn't have any of that like
trauma-ness.
Well, that, and that you don't like kind of bond with him as much or like have a soft spot for him, which is a bummer because I thought that could be like one of the things he could actually bring to it. But if that's not happening, then that is sucky.
Yeah, I've seen a few articles talking about how awesome it is, which gives me cause to be like, pump the brakes.
Yeah, once they do that, you're like, okay, this is going to be great. But the other actual news, and not me just complaining about
the Dink
movie I haven't seen yet, was that one I sent you about the Eli Roth cartoon. He's doing with DreamWorks. So he's doing a cartoon with DreamWorks called The Fight Crew, and I've read several different things about it. It's about 5 teenagers in New Orleans who accidentally unleash an ancient evil and discover that all the folklores and myths are true. I'm excited about this, and I'm going to try to make you do it for an episode.
I'll watch
I think it'd be fun.
Yeah. I mean, I'm down
it might suck, but I don't know.
It's not like we haven't done ones that suck before.
Yeah. I just love all the old lore and all the classic stuff. So I hope that they do some fun ones. And I think that it would be cool. And the couple of things that I've read about it said that it's actually like pretty freaky for a kid's show. So
yeah,
I'm excited to see.
The trailer they had, I mean, it seemed fine. Definitely seemed like something.
I didn't watch it, did it?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It definitely gave a new Scooby-Doo type feel, type vibe going for it.
I mean, that would be cool. One of my favorite cartoons ever was the original Scooby-Doo and 13 Ghosts.
Yeah, that was good. I mean, even the newer one is Scooby-Doo, or not new. I mean, it's like 20 years old. But the Zombie Island one.
Oh, I like that one too.
Yeah. I mean, it gave me that same kind of vibe. So I could definitely see younger kids into the spooky stuff being into it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, then I hope it's good and not just a steaming pile of shit like a lot of stuff has been.
Like Eli Roth presents Exorcisms. Your favorite.
Yeah. It's just so fucking dumb, dude.
Yeah.
Get off it. Get off it, bro. And I love hearing about Exorcist, but that was just, I couldn't even get through a single episode. It was painful.
I didn't even bother.
The
Just-
theme song started and like the clips at the beginning, and I was already like, my eyes were hurting because they were rolled all the way backwards.
Yeah.
And then I had to bring them back out so I could see the TV screen.
Yeah.
And then it got really dark and like one person started talking and I was like, nope, can't do
Uh-huh.
it. I can already tell this is not for me.
I forget what Shudder had something on a while ago. It was supposed to be like a documentary on something, ghosts or something. And I was like, oh, this will be interesting. And then it wasn't, because it was like, here's this fucking juggalo talking about his experience, his ghostly experiences.
Yeah, it's just like some of them, I'm like, who did they even interview? Like, did they
Right.
just find someone off a street, or did
Yeah.
somebody like write a letter into them and like,
I want to be on.
why?
Mm-hmm.
It's too much.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't even as entertaining as like the Ghost Adventures people.
Yeah, and those in the beginning entertained me, but through the
Totally.
years they've just gotten
Well, yeah.
too much.
They finally were like aware of their popularity and like, okay, we have to act it up. We have to turn up the camp. And you're like, okay, well, now this completely seems ridiculous and fake.
Yeah, and have you seen, we talked about this before, now like instead of a regular like EVP recorder or like turn on the light for yes once or two for no, it's just like a machine that tells you what they're saying.
Yeah, they started using that on Ghost Adventures. I mean, I haven't watched it in years, but they started having one. They're like, "Do you hear it? It sounded like it said open or whatever," and all it is like.
I mean, they
doesn't-
always had the EVP where it was kind of like, this thing is saying this, but now
Yeah.
it's like a fucking box that's like, go away or hello. And it's saying words.
Of course it is.
It's dumb.
Yeah, there's a lot of dumb stuff out there.
That like takes everything out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well, Eli Roth, you better do a good fucking job.
yeah, otherwise I'm gonna find you, buddy. That's a real threat.
And bite your femur in half.
Oh yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. I mean, my jaws haven't gotten there yet, but I'm working on it.
Start with the smaller bones.
Yeah, I could do that.
Work your way up.
Just kick them in the nuts.
Or that. The
I'm
go-to.
kidding. I've actually never kicked anyone in the nuts, which is crazy because I have two little brothers and we used to beat the shit out of each other all the time, but I'm just not that person.
I'm sure I've punched people in the dick, when you're younger. You play the games.
Oh,
But
I don't think I've ever gone for that.
the
I
only
think that I just will, I'll grab random stuff and beat you with it, but
right.
I don't take the cheap shots.
No, these were
my
like
weaknesses.
amongst friends. You know how dudes are. You're just standing
Yeah.
around, I'm gonna punch you in your dick. Like that.
Oh yeah. Kate
Yeah.
crotch taps me all the time.
Right.
And dudes do not know how to respond to that, by the way. It's really funny. Even though they can go around like tapping dick all the time, a girl does it. Or like she'll walk by and just like kind of lift one of my boobs and walk away. And people just they immediately are just like,
oh,
are you guys banging? Or think something's up? And I'm like,
where are the scissors at?
You guys, yeah, I'm like, you guys can literally slap each other's ass and grab each other's dicks all day. And no homo there.
Right.
She just like walks by and like taps my crotch or like lifts a boob, and you guys are like in kindergarten again. Did you see what she just did? Yeah, I felt it too, buddy.
Yeah, no, I've
And we're
never
not banging.
in a serious altercation have kicked anyone in the dick, but I did kick someone in the
I
vagina.
mean, if it was serious, maybe. Oh, did you?
When I was
I mean, a box hit is just as bad, man.
yeah. Well, she was, first of all, like 4 or 5 years older than me. And this is when I was like 7.
Hmm.
And she like kicked me off my skateboard.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. I
That's
was
not
like,
cool.
no. I'm like, what? You're like a teenager and you totally, I mean, we were all just kind of hanging out and I was just staying on my skateboard and she kicked the wheels out from under me. And so the board shot one way and then I fell the other. But,
Yeah.
falling on fucking gravel when you're not expecting it. didn't feel
Yeah,
great.
of course.
So I got up and I was like, fucking punted her in the coochie. She was sore for a little bit. I mean, we were all,
She was very happy
yeah,
about that.
yeah. She was like, oh, I mean, we were all
Women
friends,
love that.
right? But I'm like, man, that was a really bully dick thing to do. And she was like, she was a hefty girl. So there was lots of things outweighed me by like 100 pounds. I'm like, what the fuck are
I
you
hope
doing?
she doesn't listen to this podcast.
I
She's
doubt
gonna
it.
find you.
I doubt it.
She'll be like, "Oh yeah, I forgot about that."
No, she never forgot about that. She never fucked with me again. But love you, Carrie.
She's gonna find you now. It's gonna be bad.
Uh-huh. But yeah,
That's all I got.
no dick kicking. All right, well, that's all I got. So that's been horror news. All right. So let's get in to the 1943 zombie voodoo-y. I wouldn't necessarily call it a horror movie. I'd definitely call it more of like a dramatic thriller by Jacques Turner. But a classic nonetheless. I Walked with a Zombie, which I just saw on the big screen not too long ago. So it was perfect timing that you brought this up.
I'm psychic.
You must be. Do you want to read the storyline or do you want me to?
What do you want?
I'll read
I
it.
already know the answer. I'm just asking.
I mean, you could read it. Is yours short? I mean, this one's like a paragraph.
This is like a paragraph. This is kind of a long paragraph. So you want to go ahead?
Sure. Young Canadian nurse Betsy. I thought I was going to give it like a last
Are
name.
you sure you want it?
Yeah.
You want to go?
It just started off like, I'm like, all right, they're going to give her full name. Nope, just her first name. Young Canadian nurse Betsy comes to the West Indies to care for Jessica, the wife of a plantation manager, Paul Holland. Jessica seems to be suffering from a kind of mental paralysis as a result of fever. When she falls in love with Paul, Betsy determines to cure. This is a weirdly formed paragraph. Betsy is determined to cure Jessica, even if she needs to use voodoo ceremony to give Paul what she thinks he wants. Someone should really proofread these things before they put them up here on IMDb.
Right.
So yeah, nurse goes to the West Indies.
Synopsis too.
Yeah, nurse goes to the West Indies. The guy she's working for, his wife, is like a catatonic, and it's in the 40s in the West Indies. So there's a bunch of voodoo everywhere. She tries to get her better.
I mean, yeah, there's sometimes where I'm like, the fashion, the music, the food, like everything's beautiful.
Mhm.
And then when I see stuff like this, I'm like, oh yeah, this is why I'm really glad that I didn't live in a different time.
Right.
Because I would have been like killed for having woman brain or turned into it's just
A zombie.
it's a lot. Yeah.
So do we want to start with the good or the bad?
I mean, here's the real synopsis, people. There's two brothers, and one of them's a kind of cute alcoholic, and the other probably, I don't know, has more going on for him, but is a total douche and an asshole. He's married to this lady. The lady falls in love with the kind of cuter brother, who honestly may have not been an alcoholic at the time. That could have come on later. And when their mother, who's like a nurse, I guess.
Yeah, I think she's
finds
like a
out
scientist.
that- Or scientist. Yeah, the woman scientist. There were a lot back then. When she finds out the wife has fallen for the younger brother, she decides to kill her and turn her into a zombie, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And then lie about it. And she's hanging out with all the voodoo people, and her sons don't know this. She's also hanging out with this doctor that's treating the wife. And so they get this nurse to come help them. And then,
She falls in
as
love.
white people, oh yeah, and in true form in old movies, anything honestly from like the 80s or before, and even some 90s movie. After spending 5 minutes with someone of the opposite sex, you know that they're the ones for you. and
Yeah.
you're going to spend the rest of your life with them and be with them forever and will do anything for them. So the nurse falls for the older brother that has the zombie wife, but she's still trying to make the wife okay, even though that guy didn't even like that wife very much. But the brother did, so then the brother will be psyched. And then, as white people do when they're somewhere with voodoo, they're like, we're going to go see if the voodoo will cure them. And then it turns out that the voodoo was just the mom, the scientist mom that was preying on these poor people to get them boil their water so they won't get sick by telling them if they boil the water, their gods will be happy.
Yeah.
So that's the movie.
Yeah, there was a lot going on. Let's start with the good.
Mm-hmm.
What we liked about it. Do you want to go first?
Yeah.
We're probably going to have a lot of the same things that we liked about it. So,
I like this era of movies.
Mhm.
It's a very classic movie. It does lend itself to a lot of tropes and kind of generic stuff. But at the same time, this came out in the 40s, so maybe it started some of those tropes.
possibly.
I don't know. So I can't really talk shit. Maybe this was like the first movie that did some of the things that I'm like, I've seen this so much. I like the length. It's an hour and 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It's a strong length. It's a good length. It doesn't drag on too much.
Facts.
Black and white. Like that.
Good.
Cinematography was great. They really played well. Like where the wife is being held, like there's these cool stairs. In the scene where there's like a scene kind of in the beginning where the nurse hears someone crying, so she goes in to see what's going on, and the wife ends up coming down. But while you're watching it, the staircase actually looks like piano keys, and it's kind of cool. There's lots of shadow play in it. There's it's good. It's one of those movies that I could tell if I had seen it back in the day, or even on a big screen, I could see it being really fucking creepy and scary, because you don't really need to see the stuff that is there. Just the shadows and the implication is creepy enough. I'm also a big fan of the movie Serpent and the Rainbow. So to me, this is kind of like the great grandfather of that movie.
Yep.
So I really appreciated that. I think Serpent and the Rainbow is one of the most effective horror movies in our lifetime. And that's another movie too, where if you just like look scene by scene, there's nothing you're seeing that's particularly scary, but just the whole concept of that movie is completely terrifying. This could definitely invoke that kind of fear, especially if you were seeing this in the 40s and cheating on your husband with his brother and had a trip planned. It could totally scare the shit out of you. I also really liked, so there's a song that's playing. The nurse ends up going to this bar with the drunk brother, and this kind of tableside player starts playing the song, and immediately I recognized it. So in this movie, it has different lyrics, but the version I know is like called Shame and Trouble in the Family. And it's like an old Islander song that's about a guy who meets a girl, and he brings the girl to his dad, and his dad's like, you can't marry her. Don't tell your mother, but that girl's your sister. And he gets super frustrated. And then at the end of the song, he tells his mom, like, look, I really want to marry this girl, and dad told me that she's my sister and told me not to tell you. And the mom laughs, is like, go man, go. Your daddy's not your daddy, but your daddy don't know. And so they end up getting married, and you realize that everybody in the family is basically fucking around on each other. So it was funny when that song started playing. I was like, oh, fucking Shame in the Family. And it was interesting because it's like the same sort of storytelling and like foreshadowing stuff. And then I looked it up, and there's like a million different versions of that same song that kind of tell different stories, which is cool, because I knew Shame in the Family. I mean, God, like the old school ska bands and reggae bands, like everybody did that song. So, and they all had kind of a different version. So it's kind of cool that Through the Islands, that this song's like that fucking old, and they do they kind of used that same melody to tell the story with like a very similar chorus.
Yep.
So I thought that was cool. It made me excited because that's one of my favorite songs because it's really silly.
I mean, he was one of my favorite.
And it's funny.
Yeah. Sir Lancelot, which is the actor's name, the Calypso singer, was one of my favorite characters in the movie.
He's funny, especially like when he's kind of trying to be creepy the second time.
Yeah. Trying to be very very malicious. Oh, I got stopped the first time, so here I'm going to give you the rest of the story.
Yeah,
watch out for this family.
Yeah,
I agree with everything.
Those are the things I like.
I agree with everything. I love the way it played with shadows. The lighting was good. I liked the set design in general.
Mm-hmm.
The band leader, the Calypso singer, I thought was hilarious. While I like the voodoo stuff, I mean, it's not a lot of my favorite storylines. Because sometimes you have to know how to use it. I think this movie did it well. So I like the voodoo angle it played on and the creepiness that developed from it because you don't see a lot. But there's
also, you know what's funny is like they didn't get racist in this. Like some of these old movies that throw the voodoo in get like way.
Right.
But this one was weird. Like, you know, the nurse was like they were friends with the locals and they didn't, I don't think, play into that very much.
No, they seem to, you know, be friends or friendly with the quote unquote help or the townspeople. So that was nice. Darby Jones, the actual zombie, or one of them, it's a striking figure to see on a screen, especially when I saw it in the movie theater. To see it up on the movie screen, it's creepy. And yeah, you were totally right. Like back in 1943, I could definitely see how this would be a creepy ass movie to go see, especially with the voodoo angle. Because like I said, there's not like a monster per se in this movie, but in the 40s, you don't know about fucking. I mean, if you're from like Louisiana or the South, you might know about voodoo, but most of the general public isn't going to be super familiar with like island voodoo. So seeing that, it just sets a really creepy vibe and tone throughout the whole movie, which I liked. I thought I liked that it was short, although I'll segue this into the stuff I didn't like. It could have used a little bit more to kind of develop the story. Because much like Serpent and the Rainbow, towards the end, it just kind of gets silly. You're like, wait, what? Okay. Wait, okay. Oh, the mom? Wait, so the mom killed it? You know, it like.
See, I like that. It was like a Scooby-Doo kind of thing.
Well, I mean, I do generally like that stuff, and it's amusing and it's charming, but I feel like it could have used a little bit more setup and a little bit more. I don't want to necessarily say action, but a little bit more horror elements towards the end, because it's like a long setup for like the last 10 minutes. So
sure.
I'm like, if it could added like maybe 10 minutes more, or 10 or 15 minutes more of, you know, some voodoo shit happening or some violence or something, that would have been better, in my opinion. It wouldn't have made it as short as it is. It does kind of drag a little bit because it is just like one long big setup for the last 10 or 15 minutes of it. So I just feel like that would have broken it up a little bit. The one thing that confused me, okay, I know it's the 40s and they still have sailboats and everything, but they seem to go a long way on like a sailboat. I figured they'd have like an actual boat to get there. But in Creature from the Black Lagoon, it makes sense because they're going into the lagoon, so they're using like a smaller boat. I get it. But this one, I was like, man, where are they coming from? England or wherever? You probably need a bigger boat. But whatever.
Perhaps.
I mean, pretty much the only thing that really bugged me or just stuck out to me was just how the story just gets a little loose towards the end. But it is the 40s.
Yeah, I was gonna say what's cheesy to us right now, though. I don't know that would have been as cheesy back then.
Right. Or just it just gets like a lot like Swiss cheesy. I like the cheesiness of the old movies, but I feel
It was
like
too much for you.
it was a little abrupt, I should say, is the word I'm
Okay.
looking for. I think the wrapping up was abrupt, but that's really all just personal stuff. What about you?
I didn't. I think it's funny, but for the rest of the movie, I really didn't like the opening, like Lifetime style, walking on the beach, like
Oh yeah,
retrospective of what happened. About, I mean, I think it was funny because they made it sound like a love story when in fact it's. I mean, I guess it is, but it's not. Um, but the things I don't like about it are just some of the things that are like dated, which at the time weren't, because
right.
it was during the time. But you never get enough of that like whole woman brain falling in love with a dude in 2 seconds. Everyone trying to protect you by telling you what you should be doing.
Well, the funny thing, on one hand, I got it. Like I can understand you're so in love with this person that you just met 3 days ago
Yeah.
that you'll do anything so that they'll be happy. So she wants to save his wife for him so he could be happy. But even during that, he's all like, whatever. She's a cunt. I don't even care. And she's like, oh, and then they're just, getting super lovey-dovey.
No, and then like he's sending her away because the way he treats women and because he cares for her too. He
Right.
can't keep her around because he learned after, the last one became a zombie because his mom's fucking crazy that he needs to send her away before he just hurts her too. Like, that's very nice of you, sir.
Yeah.
Weird ass family.
Super weird family.
But yeah, it has that whole thing, which of course, like I said, it's part of the time, but it's like everyone's just telling this chick like what she needs to do and how she needs to do it because she's a girl or a lady. She's just buying right into it, like, and I need to protect them and I need to figure out how he can get his wife back and I need to make everyone happy because that's my job. And I'm like, are you not like wondering like what is going on in that hut you were just in and like the rituals they were doing or anything else? You're seriously just back at like, but I love him. I love him and I have to help his wife not be a zombie anymore so they can be happy together and I can wait.
Yeah, whatever.
Like,
that's one scene I wish was a lot longer or they had more of those scenes were the ritual scenes. Like that whole thing was cool. And then one other thing that is kind of confusing, but kind of not, but also kind of confusing is
now I'm confused.
The ritual. So they start doing the ritual on his wife. We'll use her name. Where's she at? Mrs. Rand. Or no, that's the mom.
That's the mom.
Yeah, Jessica Holland. They make her hold a sword or cut her hand and she doesn't bleed. So they're like, she doesn't bleed, she's dead. And then at the end of the movie, you find out that there was a love affair between Holland and her brother-in-law, the drunk brother, and that the mom
been drunk back then,
right? And that the mom found out and was like, "Oh!" And then the chick got sick, and then the mom gave her some, voodoo potion because she was like, "Fuck you, bitch," and she ended up becoming a zombie. And then you got the doctor who's like, "Oh, what? She never was even looked dead," and then you find out that she slipped into a coma, and then told the doctor. But you still never really gets cleared up is if it's like a zombie like Darby Jones, is he dead or is he just like your typical voodoo zombie where he's under a spell, like in White Zombie they put him under a spell for work. So is she really dead or is she just in some somnambulant stage? But they also allude to her the whole coma thing. She was in a coma for like 3 days and we never told anybody. So she could have
Right.
died and now she's just a zombie. That's one of the things where it's like, oh, I mean, I guess you could just go with your imagination to make it more of a horror movie and be like, oh yeah, she's dead. So she's actually a zombie,
Right.
which is cool too. But
I think back then that would be more believable.
right. They just kind of like moved over that fact in the explanation, like real quick. They're like, here's 30 seconds.
Yeah.
We're going to say this and not kind of clear it up. And I guess in the screenplay, there's like a lot more detail about stuff. I guess the screenplay had more of a backstory on the wife and how she was just kind of a cunt and no one really liked her except for the drunk brother who might not have been drunk at the
Right.
time.
Well, yeah, and then the final scene when they're doing this like pseudo prayer thing, they're talking about how evil she was and like,
Right.
may God save her soul. And I'm like, did anyone forget about the part where the mom just like killed her?
Or tried to or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing. The nurse,
Yes, we did forget about that.
right? Yeah. Betsy was saying
Yes.
how she has a pulse and she has a heartbeat. She breathes. She has a heartbeat, so she's not dead. But then she
Mhm.
doesn't bleed, and she could have possibly died in a coma. And then the mother gave her some voodoo potion, and now she's a living but dead zombie. I don't know. I just needed it wrapped up a little bit better for me.
Yeah, no, that part was very confusing. It reminded me of some of the like old Dracula films where you're like, wait, so sometimes he can be in the sun, sometimes he can't. If someone drinks his blood, they die, but then sometimes they become a vampire. Wait,
Yeah.
what? What is it? Like, which is it?
Yeah.
So,
But again, it's the 40s, so they were probably, all right, this has gone on long enough. Let's just wrap it up.
yeah, probably. Or they just were like
Whatever.
getting fucked up on drugs, and I don't know. I don't know what people did back then. Something's
Lithium.
going on though.
Yeah.
Some laudanum. Still
Mm.
doing laudanum back then?
No,
Sure
some
you are.
ludes or whatever they did back
Yeah.
then.
I think ludes are more like in the 60s.
Probably.
Sure.
Lithium is probably 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
Quaaludes, 60s, and then I guess mid 60s and 70s, acid and cocaine. There's a
But it
timeline
was
on
good.
drugs.
Like I think it's good. I had never actually seen this, so
Yeah, I've owned it for so many years and I've watched it, I mean, probably less than 3 times because it's one of those movies. Like the first time I watched it, I was confused because the name makes it seem like there's going to be like
zombies.
zombies or like more prominent zombies. And I watched and I was like, huh, okay, that was a movie. And then I watched it maybe a time or two again to get it more, the more I got into older movies, I'm like, I get it. So it was
Right.
never one of my favorites. And then I saw it in the theater because I'll take any chance I can to see an old horror movie in the theater. And stuff in theaters is always better, especially when there are these old movies. But then I rewatched it again just to get ready for this. And yeah, I mean, I appreciate it. And I appreciate the place it has in the voodoo lore history of horror movies. And it's very Serpent in the Rainbow. So that's cool. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's a movie that has its place in horror history in general. And it is entertaining.
And like
and
I said, I think that this movie might have created some of the tropes that I'm done seeing.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
But I can't be mad at it because it's probably like the first time it was done.
Yeah, I think this and then White Zombie came out 10 years before it ish. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely in that first grouping of
It was in the 30s.
yeah, the first grouping of legit voodoo based zombie movies. So it's a classic just for that. I mean, you can't take that away from it.
Oh, for sure.
Want to rate it?
I'm glad I saw it. I enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
Will I watch it again? I don't know. Probably at some point in passing. I feel like it's something that will come back up.
Yeah.
Rating it. Yeah. I would give it a 2.75.
Okay. I like that. I'm going to give it a 2.
Huh.
Not because I dislike it. I wish it had some more stuff in it. Like I like the whole vibe of it. I like
Mhm.
its place in horror history. I like,
Mhm.
I mean, there's definitely stuff to like about it from like a cinematic perspective as far as the way it looks.
Yeah, it's
Even
visually
the
really cool.
yeah, even the story's fun. I just wish there was more of it, a little more of it. It satisfied me a little more. I just felt like for as much setup as it was giving, it should have had a little more payoff in the end. But
Sure.
that all being said, I definitely think people should see it at least once. Replay value, I don't know how much there is. It's not
Mhm.
one of the more exciting older horror movies from the 40s, but I definitely think it's worth at least knowing about and seeing it at least once. And who knows, you might find it's very endearing and it's very charming. So I could see people liking it.
Yeah, I agree. And like, I guess just straight up as a movie, if I hadn't thought about the timeline, it would be more around a 2, but I'm thinking of it and bumping it higher because of the movies that it probably inspired
Right.
and like where it was it's at that time. Like I really do like the music storytelling aspect of it and that kind of foreshadowing stuff. This is still in the time period where we've talked before on the silver screen where I feel like movies are trying to find their way off of the stage.
Mm-hmm.
And this one, I feel like, is one of the first movies I've seen in that time period that this was, it read more movie and less stage.
Right.
I mean, it still had a little bit of that, but it did more development. It used its surroundings a lot more and not just in like a very flat linear way.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they were really starting to explore more with like camera angles, like the shadows and stuff and different things. And I like seeing that in the earliest stages. And I do think that even though it's not super exciting, it is a very cute movie. The acting is good. The cinematography, I think for its time is really good. And yeah, I do think that probably a lot of people that we now look up to and kind of enjoy the works of were inspired by this one.
Totally. I agree. I think it's a very important movie. So just based on that alone, I mean, I think people should watch all the old movies, anything from the 60s and before. I think people should, even the really shitty ones, because there's always something good in them. Like all the really early,
sure.
like Roger Corman movies are fucking, the monsters look fucking goofy as hell.
Yeah.
Plot really isn't great, but they're fun and they're charming, and it gives you a sense of like where movies started, where film started, and where it was going to. So yeah,
For sure.
I agree.
Yeah. And definitely like keep in mind that this is somewhere in between going from theater to like movies really getting them their groove.
Mm-hmm.
Like it is not all the way on the stage play side, but it's still, not full movie style, the way the scenes go and everything else.
Yeah.
I just appreciated that it was moving in the right direction. So
Definitely.
don't misinterpret what I say and think it is in all the way over there, because it's not. It's still very much is something that you could watch in the theater.
Yeah, for
easily.
sure. And
as in live theater, not
Yeah.
television theater, movie theater.
But again, it has its place in it. That stuff is charming. So if you like all that type of stuff, you'll probably like it. It's a good
Oh, for sure.
It's a good, interesting love story, I should say. And
Yeah.
interesting in quotations.
Yeah. It's not, I mean, it's not that far off many other love stories. It's just throwing in some murder zombie stuff in there, whatever.
Yeah. But I mean, it averages out to a 2.4, and that's pretty good for us. And we definitely think everyone
That's
should
true.
see it. So
Yeah, I
it
agree.
has its place. Yeah. Well, anything else?
Nope.
All right. Yeah, me either. So, all right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in for another
episode of Monster Candy Podcast / Silver Scream Series edition of the 1943 film I Walked with a Zombie. And we will see you little buttholes next time.
And we might be zombies.
Hello, Mr.
Or not.
Fancy Pants.
If we piss off the
Candyman,
scientists.
Give me some sugar.
Mothers.
Or a mom.
Like scary movies.
Uh-huh.
All right, everybody. See you later.
Bye.
Groovy.
You ever dance with the devil by the pale moonlight? We don't have to be mean.
Yeah, Jack Burton just looks that big old storm right square in the eye and he says, "Get away from her, you bitch!"
You're gonna need a bigger boat. Your move, creep.
Listen to them. Children of the night. What music they make.